If you spend any time in alternative keyboard layout communities, one thing that you'll see frequently is people asking whether they'll lose their ability to type with QWERTY if they switch to an alternative layout. And I can absolutely understand why people ask this question, because after all, not being able to type on any computer that isn't your own would certainly be a huge problem. In today's video, what I want to do is give an answer to this question and tell you a little bit about my own experiences. Right now, on the Linux Lounge. So, the short answer to today's question of whether you'll be able to still type with QWERTY if you switch to an alternative keyboard layout is this. It depends. Unfortunately, if you switch to an alternative keyboard layout, there's absolutely no guarantee that you'll still be able to type with QWERTY. There are anecdotes from people who have switched and have been able to maintain their full QWERTY speed, but there are also anecdotes from people who have become almost completely unable to type with QWERTY. And of course there are anecdotes from people who have experienced everything in between. Although, a vast majority of people are still able to type using QWERTY to some extent or another. Personally, I've actually been able to maintain my full QWERTY speed without any issues. Actually, if anything, I can now type faster with QWERTY for reasons that I don't quite understand. Additionally, I can pretty much sit down at any computer and start typing with QWERTY as if I'd never switched to Colmac at all. It all just seems to come naturally to me. Now, this is nothing scientific and it's all entirely based on anecdotes and guesses, but personally I think there are 3 factors that really determine your ability to maintain your QWERTY typing ability. The first factor seems to be the method that you use to type prior to learning an alternative keyboard layout. It seems to me that people who used a hunt and peck method, or even some kind of homebrew self-taught typing method, seem to be able to retain their QWERTY ability better than someone who has a proper 10-finger touch typing method. Personally, I never actually learned to type properly, so once I finally learned how to do that with Colmac, I found that I was able to retain my old improper typing method with QWERTY because it seems to occupy just such a different part of my brain. So if you're like me, it's possible that you might be able to retain your QWERTY skills if you switch to an alternative keyboard layout. But if you're already a proper typist, I assume that you would be much more likely to forget how to type with QWERTY. The second factor that maintaining your QWERTY ability comes down to is practice. If you're still frequently using QWERTY, then you're obviously much less likely to forget it. I know a lot of people in the alternative keyboard community like to use their alternative layout of choice at home and QWERTY at work or school. Personally, I attribute a great deal of my QWERTY ability to doing just this, so I definitely recommend it. Although, you should probably know that some people in the community advise against it, so definitely weigh up the pros and cons. The final thing that dictates whether or not you'll be able to maintain your QWERTY skills is sadly luck. Everyone is different, so obviously it's impossible to say whether or not you'll still be able to type with QWERTY after switching to an alternative layout. The only way to find out, really, is to just try switching and see what happens. But if losing the ability to type with QWERTY would be an absolute game over situation for you, then I probably wouldn't switch to an alternative keyboard layout at all, since the risk is always there. But wait, let's just switch gears for a minute and ask a slightly different question. Do you actually need to be able to type with QWERTY? I'd have to say that the answer to that question is no. Because there aren't really many situations where typing with an alternative keyboard layout isn't possible. For a start, Windows, Mac and Linux all support Dvorak out of the box. So, if you're going to start typing on a computer, just change the keyboard layout and away you go. For us Colmac users, things do get a little bit more complicated, but not by a lot. Mac and Linux both support Colmac out of the box, but sadly Windows doesn't for whatever reason. But thankfully, not all hope is lost. There's a portable program that you can run on any PC to quickly and temporarily give you the Colmac keyboard layout, and it doesn't even require admin privileges, so you can really run this program on any Windows PC. Personally, I used to just carry it around on a USB stick that I took everywhere I went. So, as you can see, it's definitely possible to get through the world without using QWERTY at all. So, I wouldn't say that forgetting how to use QWERTY is the disaster that you might initially assume it would be. So there we go, that's the end of the video. Hopefully if you were on the fence about switching to an alternative keyboard layout, this video has addressed any concerns that you might have. Personally, I wouldn't let those concerns influence your decision. I switched to Colmac and I couldn't be happier with it. But with that said, that's it for today's video. I thank you for watching it and I will see you in the next one.